known and nothing remains unknown. Because Krishna is the cause of all causes. You know him, then you know everything else. Okay, so the Vedic civilization was always it was on this principle. There were different branches of knowledge in the Vedic civilization, but everything had a connection with God consciousness. Every branch, whether it is arts or sciences, they all had some connection with God. Okay? There was nothing like, there was no disconnect between spirituality and other aspects of life. So if there was art, if there was music, they would sing about God. If there was dance, they would perform, they would dance about the pastimes of God. Drama, every art, painting, every science also, right? Like even medicine, the Lord of medicine, according to the Vedic medicine, is Dhanvantari, who is the incarnation of God. So they first pray to Dhanvantari, and they understand that every medicine, the potency of every medicine is actually God, right? So even so-called mundane sciences like architecture and others, astronomy and so on, they were connected with God consciousness in the Vedic civilization, right? Unlike the modern society where God is nowhere in the picture, actually. And if you even talk about God, then you are considered like a you're considered like weird or something, correct? And they consider like you are some kind of fanatic, some kind of sentimentalist or something. You're not supposed to talk about God. You're supposed to talk about anything else but God. So that's unfortunately that's how it is. But the Vedic civilization, on the other hand, puts God in the center of every aspect of it. Right? Okay. Third, this is interesting. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvataha.
Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows the truth.
And of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Out of many thousands of men, one may endeavor for perfection. Right? And what kind of perfection are we talking about? We are not talking about perfection in cooking or something. We are talking about perfection of life. Ultimate perfection, the highest perfection of life. Right? Manushyana sahasresha, out of thousands of people, one may endeavor for perfection. Right? And out of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. What is interesting in this? Okay, but before I hear from you, I'd like you to read the first paragraph of the purport.
There are various grades of men, and out of many thousands, one may be sufficiently interested in transcendental realization to try to know what is the self, what is the body, and what is the absolute truth. Generally, mankind is simply engaged in the animal propensities, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, and hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. The first 6 chapters of the Gita are meant for those who are interested in transcendental knowledge, in understanding the self, the super self, and the process of realization by Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and discrimination of the self from matter. However, Krishna can be known only by persons who are in Krishna consciousness. Other transcendentalists may achieve impersonal Brahman realization, for this is easier than understanding Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Person, but at the same time he is beyond the knowledge of Brahman and Paramatma. The yogis and jnanis are confused in their attempts to understand Krishna. Although the greatest of the impersonalists, Sripada Shankaracharya, has admitted in the Gita commentary that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his followers do not accept Krishna as such, for it is very difficult to know Krishna, even though one has transcendental realization of impersonal Brahman.
Okay. So Krishna therefore says, even among those who have achieved perfection, hardly anyone knows me. Right? So that's what Prabhupada is explaining, how even those who are on the path of spiritual life, those who are practicing spiritual life, also even among them, not everyone understands Krishna fully. Right?
So in this case, does perfection mean Brahman realization?
Yes. Yes. Realization of the self. Brahman means the soul, the spirit. Right? So to realize that you are not the body, you are a soul, that is Brahman realization. But to realize that that soul is an eternal servant of Krishna, that is complete realization. That is, that's the highest aspect of self-realization. So anyway, the point here is that most people, they're interested in immediate benefits, right? You know, when you were kids, did you like to study? Why not?
Boring.
It was boring. Right? And okay, to explain it more, if you want to explain it more, how would you put it? Further?
It requires too much concentration.
That's right. But why were you not interested? Why are kids in general not so much interested in sitting and studying?
Because they'd rather be playing.
I'm sorry?
Because they'd rather be playing.
Yes, but why? Because it gives them immediate enjoyment. Okay? You play and you enjoy it right then, but you study, you don't enjoy it then. You enjoy it much later. Right? You study, you get a degree, and then it's like a future enjoyment. It's not on that spot. At that time, it's like hard work. Okay? So that's so that's what the animals do also. The animals also look for immediate enjoyment. So similarly, we even adults actually, to some degree we are like that. We still have the same mentality, right? We look for immediate pleasures. You eat, you sleep, you mate, you defend, you enjoy. So that's like immediate pleasures, right? So it takes really a very mature person to look beyond the immediate pleasures. So therefore, most people are interested in immediate pleasures. But therefore, out of thousands of such people, there will be some rare soul who has the maturity, who has the far-sightedness to be able to understand the importance of practicing spiritual life. Because what does spiritual life give you? It gives you self-realization, but you can't tangibly see, what am I going to get by this self-realization? Am I going to get money? Am I going to get a job or something? That's like, what's self-realization? It's not something tangible, apparently. But actually, if you give it enough time if you give it enough thought, you can actually see that that's the only thing that's of everlasting benefit. Anything else you gain, you lose it eventually. But this is something that's related to the soul, so therefore it carries on, life after life after life, eternally. So the point is that very few people have that ability to see that far, right? And go beyond the immediate benefits of life. Okay? So, but even among those who have that vision, that maturity, not everyone completely understands. And so it's so rare. It's actually a very rare soul who can actually come to Krishna. That's what he's saying in this purport. We'll go for the next one. Bhumirapo nalo vayu kammano buddhireva cha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritirashtadha. Yes, I agree.
Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies.
No, this is in a progression from the gross to the subtle. You know what gross and subtle mean? What do you mean by gross and subtle? Gross means
Physical.
more physical, more tangible. Right? Something which you can experience more directly. That's gross. And subtle means the opposite of that. It's something which is harder to grasp. Right? Like you can say the hardware of a computer is gross. Software is more subtle. It's there, but you can't really directly see it unless you, of course, you see it on the screen, but you don't really. You can see exactly how it, the form, right? It's more subtler. So, from the gross to the subtle is actually is always more powerful than the gross, because the subtle moves the gross. You understand? Like the electricity moves, has the power to move, make things happen in our lives. We see that. Right? The power makes the fan move. It makes the lights work and everything. So the subtler things are more powerful always. So here, this is in a progression: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So what's the grossest of all these elements? Earth. Subtler than earth is water. Subtler than water is fire. Subtler is air. Subtler is ether. Ether actually means space. Yes. And subtler than ether is the mind. Okay, so up to ether, it's all the gross elements. And mind, the three elements after that, that is mind, intelligence, and ego, they are the subtle elements. Okay? So these are the 5 gross elements and the 3 subtle elements. So all these together, these 8 constitute my separated material energies, separated energies. Now what does Krishna mean by separated energies? But before we go into that, first let me ask you, what is material energy? What do you mean by material?
Temporary.
Anything else? Temporary is a quality, but what exactly is material?
Doesn't have consciousness.
Yes, it's inert, doesn't have consciousness. It's dead. That's material. It's the opposite of conscious. So the opposite of material is spiritual. Spiritual means something that's conscious, that's aware, that has, basically. So, I actually want to share a video with all of you in the email. It's a very interesting video, which shows, from quantum mechanics, it actually shows how it's actually the awareness that actually changes reality, right? And that's actually a very well-known fact, and how it is, it's very well demonstrated in that video. Very scientific video. If you have time to watch it, because that really shows how conscious awareness cannot be just a product of matter. That actually proves that the soul exists. Right? Conscious awareness cannot be a product of matter, cannot be a product of material combination. Like our consciousness cannot be just a product of combination of material elements, combination of chemicals. It's an entity that is separate from the material body. That is conscious, and that is very, very scientifically proven by that explanation. It's basically, I don't know how much you are aware of quantum mechanics, but I don't know if you heard about the famous double slit experiment and so on. It actually means that when you look at something, it has a particular, the light behaves like a particle. But if you don't look at it, it behaves like a wave. Right? Without getting into the details, it actually means, like if like if you have a detector, right, that determines, that tries to determine from which of these two slots the photon has passed, the electron has passed, right? But even if there is a detector, if you don't look at the reading of the detector, then it behaves as a wave. And you see interference pattern on the screen. I don't know if you are able to, I don't want to get into too much detail about that, but so you'll see an interference pattern on the screen, right, with multi-stripes. If you don't look at the reading of the detector, but if you look at the reading of the detector, it actually behaves as a particle, and you only see two stripes just behind the two slits. You understand? So the detector, even the detector is not causing light to, it's not causing the electrons or the photons to behave as particles. It's only when you look at the readings of the detector, right? So the detector is just a product of particles again. Even your eyes, a human being, his body is also a bunch of particles. So that cannot affect the behavior of the electron or the photon. So, but whereas when you look at it, it actually changes it. So that actually means that experience of seeing, that experience of cognition or recognition, right, is actually something that cannot be just a product of combination of material particles, material substances. I don't know how clear that is, but that will be more clear when you see the video, which I'm going to share with you. But basically, what this actually means is that these are all material energies. These 8 are material energies. That means they are not conscious, right? They're material. They're separated. And what does separated mean? Separated means separate from. It is not with Krishna. It is it's like cut off from Krishna in that sense. Now Krishna in the next verse he explains that there is a superior energy. There's a the spiritual energy which is separate from these. Okay, we'll do the next verse. Apareyamitastvanyam Prakritim vidhi me param
Prakritim vidhi me param
Jivabhutam mahabaho
Jivabhutam mahabaho
Yedam dharyate jagat.
Yedam dharite jagat. Besides these, O mighty Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material, inferior nature.
Okay, so can you explain that? Besides these 8 elements that have been mentioned before, right? 5 gross elements and 3 subtle elements. Right? What are the 3 subtle elements?
He said they were mind, intelligence, and false ego.
Right. So beyond these 8 material elements, there is something else, and that's called, there's another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities. Living entities means not their bodies, but the souls. Right? Because the bodies are made up again those 8 elements. So he's saying besides these 8 elements, there is something. So that should be the soul. Which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resource of this material inferior nature. Right? So the soul is the higher energy, the superior energy. You want to read the first paragraph of the first one?
Here it is clearly mentioned that living entities belong to the superior nature of the Supreme Lord. The inferior energy is matter manifested in different elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Both forms of material nature, namely gross and subtle, are products of the inferior energy. The living entities who are exploiting these inferior energies for different purposes are the superior energy of the Supreme Lord, and it is due to this energy that the entire world functions. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy, the living entity. Energies are always controlled by the energetic, and therefore the living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence. They are never equally powerful, as unintelligent men think. The distinction between the living entities and the Lord is described in Srimad Bhagavatam as follows.
Yeah. We can also read the last paragraph. I guess.
The Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him. These living entities are his superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme, but they are never equal to the Lord in quantity of power. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy, the superior energy forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. But when the living entity becomes free from the influence of the illusory material energy, he attains a stage called mukti or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, thinks, I am matter and material acquisitions are mine. His actual position is realized when he is liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of his becoming one in all respects with God. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi-energies of Krishna, and when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated.
Okay. Right, so the superior energy, the living entity, although it is spiritual, because of its minuteness, it can get overcome by matter. Right? You understand? Is that clear? Because the soul, although in quality superior to matter, but it's very minute, so it can get covered over by the influence of the material energy, because it's huge. Right? However, when the soul comes in shelter, under the shelter of Krishna, under the protection of the influence of Krishna, then he can get freed from that illusion. Right? Okay? We'll just do the next few verses, but we won't go to the purport. एतद् योनीनि भूतानि
एतद्योनीनि भूतानि
सर्वाणि इत्युपधारय
सर्वाणीत्युपधारय
अहं कृत्स्नस्य जगतः
अहं कृष्णस्य जगतः
प्रभवः प्रलयस्तथा
प्रभवः प्रलयस्तथा.
All created beings have their source in these two natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution.
What does that mean?
I am the source and end of everything.
Yes. Of both these natures.
Yeah.
Right? I'm the source and then. So Krishna is showing a special position. That I'm not one of these. I'm actually beyond these. I'm the source of these.
I have a question about this. Like,
Yes, yes.
Earlier in the Gita, doesn't it say that like the soul, like our souls never have a start? They have like they've always been here and they always will be. So like, what does it mean when it says that he's the source of?
Good question. You understand the question, Pranav?
Sir,
You were paying attention.
Yeah, sorry.
The question is, if the soul has no beginning and no end, how is it that Krishna is the source of the soul? Right? Krishna and the soul are co-eternal. They are both eternal. However, the eternal relationship among the two is that of the like the predominator and the predominated. In other words, the cause and the effect. But just like, for example, the sun and sunshine. Right? Who is the source?
Sun.
And what's the effect? The sunshine, right? But was there a time when there was sun but no sunshine? No. They always existed. Right? So the soul is eternal, but even Krishna is eternal, God is eternal, but eternally they are in a relationship of master and the subordinate. Right? So eternally the soul is depending or dependent on God. Correct? Just like you have your body parts, right? They've always been with you. You like if just we are not talking about the soul, but the body, right? The parts of the body are always subordinate to the body, correct? Do you agree?
They are the body, though.
That's all right. They are part of the body. They are not the whole body. They are part of the body, right? Like your finger, it's part of you. Is it subordinate to you? Yes. Yes. It's depending on you. It cannot act independently, right? So that subordination is also ever existing. Is that clear? Does it
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah.
It's not like you existed at a time and there was no finger.
Yeah.
Right? The finger or the part of the body also existed from the beginning, from when you were there. However, the relationship is always subordinate and predominant. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's the
Krishna's-
source.
So we're subordinate to Krishna, but we don't come from him. Like we're subordinate to him, but we don't originate from him. But like we're still subordinate.
Well, isn't it not in the sense that we were born, right? We are dependent. That's in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
We're dependent.
Exactly.
So that's the sense in which this is said. Not that we didn't exist and then we started to exist. Right? So therefore, he is the predominator, and in that sense, he is the source. As a predominator, he is also the source. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
I mean, I feel like there's a difference between being like him being the predominator and him being the origin of us. Like those two concepts are different, right? Like, so like I don't understand why I can understand why he's a predominator, but I don't get why he's the source or the origin. Because like if something originates from something, that means it didn't exist before it was originated, right? Like creation means that you were created from not being created.
Well, that is the conception in this material world, where something didn't exist, and then it started to exist, right?
And it's like the soul, right? Like you can say like we can exist and then like, but the soul is like a separate part of us. So like, and that came from Krishna. Also, I don't think this is meant to be taken like so literally as to say like.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, is there like some number for how many souls there are, or is it like infinite?
It's infinite.
Because time is infinite, it's hard for us to think of time as infinite. Like usually you think that there's a beginning and end, but that wouldn't make any sense, that
Right.
we're just suddenly created. But it's
Yes.
hard to wrap your mind around something being infinite also. It's hard to think, it's like, yeah. It's hard to understand.
Okay. Yes. So actually, in answer to both your questions, there is a common answer. The answer is that Krishna is beyond time and space. Spiritual reality is beyond time and space. So therefore, you cannot project these conceptions which you have, which are within the realm of time and space, to something that's beyond the realm of time and space. Right? So in this world, everything has a beginning and it has an end.
Yeah.
Right? But whereas the soul and God both have no beginning and no end. So therefore, you cannot say how is it that it's the source. Right? It's the source, but without birth. That's the inconceivable way how it works. You don't need to have a birth in order to say that Krishna is the source. That's how the spiritual reality is, explained in the Vedas. Right? They're eternal yet subordinate. Eternally subordinate. Eternally, he's the source and he's the effect. Krishna is the source and we are the effect. Yeah, it's inconceivable.
That makes sense.
Okay, thank you. And same thing with the question of infinity. You have a question, you have a conception of something that's finite,
Yeah.
quantitative,
Yeah.
right? But Krishna has infinite potencies.
Hmm.
Right? If you say there's a limit to the number of souls or number of people, living entities, that would limit Krishna.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas Krishna is unlimited. Therefore, there are unlimited universes. Right? And so on. So therefore, there is no limit.
I was just going to say, even if you think about the whole universe or whatever, it would be hard to imagine that there's some wall, that the universe has a wall around it where you can't go farther. Even the universe itself seems it's probably infinite.
Well, actually, it's not.
It's not.
Nothing material is ever infinite. The concept of infinity only pertains to something that is spiritual. Right? Material things always have a limit in terms of time and space. Right? Anything exists in time. It began at a particular time and it's destroyed at a particular time. Right? It occupies a particular space. It has a limitation. Right? Whether it's the universe or a small object. Correct? However, the spiritual reality has no limitations of time and space beyond both. Right? But since the universe as such is a material object, although huge, it has a limitation in its space and its time. But the number of universes is unlimited.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Then, like, not just this universe. I'm talking about everything.
Yes, yes. There is unlimited because ultimately they all come from Krishna. So therefore, the energy of Krishna is unlimited. So therefore, because of that, the number of universes is unlimited. But the universe itself is not unlimited.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Okay. Just take maybe another 3 minutes. That's okay. This is very important. Number 7. Matta paratam nanya kinchidasti dhananjaya maya sarvavidam protam sutre manigana iva. What's next?
O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread.
Yes. So this is very significant, very important. There is no truth superior to me. Krishna is the source of everything, as he already explained, but he is something even more than that. Right? Can you explain how Krishna is something more than just being the source of everything? Krishna is the source of all the material and the spiritual energies. Correct? But he is even more something beyond that. That doesn't completely describe Krishna. Just merely saying that he is the source of everything. Do you understand what I mean?